Chapter 61 The Secret of Taixuan Sect, The Difference Between Good and Evil. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Liya left, Guan quietly put Elder Chen's storage bag into the 8th Scenery Cave Heaven. That afternoon, he came to the 3rd Medicine Valley. He wandered around and checked the park, but his brows were furrowed. For a long time old Tian finally took the bait. He walked over and asked curiously, "Valley Master, why are you frowning all the time?" Guan glanced at him, shook his head slightly, and said nothing. Old Tian stepped forward and said, "Maybe I can't help you, but many things are not so stressful when they are said out. I can give you advice from the perspective of an observer." Guan sighed and told what happened in the outer gate. He also mentioned that Liya, who was in the first level of the Jindan realm, was injured. To protect him, the reason why he named Liya was that he wanted the former master to remember Liya's contribution. Guan always felt that old Tian would not really spend his life here. Maybe one day he would come back. After he finished speaking, old Tian frowned. Guan couldn't help but complain. The outer sect's demon elimination hall catches demon spies all day long, but after so many years, there are still demon cultivators sneaking into Taixuan Sect. Is Taixuan Sect really the first sect? The disciples in Taixuan Sect can't even guarantee their safety. It's okay if I'm killed, but I'm worried about my disciples. At this point, he sighed again, very worried and aggrieved. Even he praised his acting skills. If acting skills can also be included in the attribute panel, it should have reached the pinnacle, leaving some room to impact the return to nature. Old Tian sighed and said, "It sounds really troublesome, but this world of immortal cultivation has always been like this. No matter which sect, they don't care about menial disciples. To put it bluntly, they don't even treat menial disciples as disciples." Guan frowned. This time, he really frowned. These words coming from the former sect master were so harsh. "But I heard that the new leader is kind and righteous, and is the most popular choice of the elders. Maybe he can change the status quo, at least better than the previous leader." Tian Lao continued. His face did not change, as if he was not the one being dragged down, and it was hard to tell whether he was being sarcastic. Guan did not respond, but just sighed, and then continued to check the herbs. Tian Lao did not keep up with his pace, and he did not mention it again, fearing that it would be worse than too little. An hour later, Guan returned to Xian Valley again. Recently, he planned to stay in Xian Valley, and he had to come back the same day if he went to other places. The disciples of Xian Valley were very puzzled as to why Guan had been staying in Xian Valley recently, until Wu Xian and Tang Yu went to the outer gate, and learned that there were demon cultivators sneaking in recently, which made them nervous and moved at the same time. The master has them in his heart. Since the establishment of the 3rd Medicine Valley, the disciples have felt that their relationship with Guan has become distant, but now they feel close again. Wu Xian was under the greatest pressure, and he began to force his disciples to practice magic, striving for everyone to have a little self-protection power. He bought some spells with big movements from the outer sect and let the disciples practice. It is difficult to kill the demon cultivators, but if the fighting noise is big enough, maybe they can get support from the outer sect. Guan did not stop it. Maybe this incident can improve the cohesion of Xian Valley and just train Wu Xian's leadership and organizational ability. A few days later, Yilan came. The reason she came was the same as Liya's. She was worried about Guan. In the attic, Yilan took out a sword from the storage bag, put it on the table, and said, "Recently, there are demon cultivators, and their cultivation is not low. This sword is called Qinghong sword. You carry it with you. Although it does not have strong power, it is connected with the bailing sword in my hand. If you are in danger, I can sense it in the first time, and I will come to save you at that time." Guan didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Junior sister, your cultivation is only a few levels higher than mine. Don't come to give yourself up. Give yourself up." Yilan only thought about it for a moment and understood immediately. She glared at Guan and snorted, "Brother, if we really fight, I can subdue you with one move. Don't look at me like this in front of you. Others will feel different when facing me. It seems that my junior sister is really powerful. I underestimated you." Guan smiled and picked up the Qinghong sword. The scabbard was exquisite, with a wild goose carved on it, spreading its wings above the clouds, which was very charming. He drew the sword and a slender blade appeared in front of him. It's really beautiful. I will hang it around my waist in the future. Guan smiled. Yilan smiled when she heard these words. Guan found that although Yilan's appearance was not as stunning as Ji Xiaoyu and Li Xuanyu, she was still pretty. After watching for a long time, Yilan sat down and watched Guan fiddle with the Qinghong sword with a smile. Guan suddenly asked curiously, if you are in danger, can the Qinghong sword sense the bailing sword? Yilan raised her eyebrows and said, why, senior brother, do you still want to protect me? Ha ha ha, how is it possible? You know that your senior brother has never fought before. Going there will only cause trouble for you. It's good that you know, senior brother. Anyway, if I'm in danger, don't come. Don't worry, I'm afraid of death. Hee, I'm afraid of death too. I won't die. I have to survive. Without me, I'm afraid that you, senior brother, will be bullied. Nonsense, have I been bullied for so many years? Then I wish senior brother a lifetime of peace. Since Liya left, Xian Valley has not encountered any danger again. When autumn came, Guan calculated the time and found that a batch of herbs in the third medicine valley should be mature, so he returned to the third medicine valley. He walked out of the teleportation array and couldn't help but look towards his attic. There's someone in the building. Shenzhen. Guan didn't go to Shenzhen directly. There were no secrets in that attic anyway. The only secret was Qing Xia's travel notes, which she happened to like too. He walked to a park and started picking herbs. He looked at the prompts that kept popping up in front of him. The corners of his mouth raised and he felt extremely happy. No matter how high he reaches, he will be happy to see his lifespan increase. I don't know how far his cultivation level can be improved with a lifespan of 1 million years. He rummaged through the books in the outer library and found no record of ascension, and no one knew how big this world was. The bigger the world is, the higher the realm must be. Taixuan sect alone has great monks in the realm of crossing the void. The true disciple who travels abroad may have surpassed the realm of crossing the void, but he is still not invincible in the world. The road to immortality is long and arduous. Guan was thinking wildly while picking. When he finished picking, he turned and walked towards the attic. When passing by Mr. Tian said, that Miss Xian has come to see you several times. Guan nodded slightly and then moved on. Mr. Tian hesitated for a moment and said, I have already told the elders of the ancient sect about what you mentioned. Maybe it can improve the situation in the outer sect. When Guan heard this, he turned back to look at him with a smile on his face and said, Tian Lao, you see, everyone has his own use. You always say that you will be buried at any time, but you can also help thousands of disciples in the outer sect. Thank you very much. Guan raised his hand to salute, then turned and left. Mr. Tian was thoughtful and murmured to himself, everyone has his own use. The other side, Guan went upstairs, pushed the door open, and saw Shenzhen sitting at the desk writing. She was still wearing black clothes and a black gauze on her face. Her long hair was tied into a bun, and 2 strands of willow-like hair were fluttering on both sides of her face. Those eyebrows give people a gentle and watery beauty. Shenzhen didn't raise his eyes, as if he didn't see Guan come in. Guan walked over and walked around to see what she was writing. At this time, she stopped writing slowly and put away the paper, but Guan, who had already seen part of the content, looked strange and hesitated to speak. Shenzhen stood up and stuffed the collected paper into her sleeves. She walked to the side, distanced herself from Guan, and said with a smile, I have looked for you several times, but you are not there every time. The medicine valley at the outer door is it worth your attachment? Guan said helplessly, the outer gate is not safe these days, and I can't pick up all my disciples, so I have to guard them. After all, my cultivation level is higher than theirs. The reason why he disclosed this matter was that he hoped to use her mouth to convey words to the superiors. The more people speak, the more strength and hope there is. With your current achievements, let alone entering the inner sect, it is not difficult to go to the sect's main city of Taixuan. Why don't you write a book well? Why do you have to do these trivial things? Shenzhen asked curiously. Guan replied, you are a saint from the Taoist sect and you have resources beyond the reach of ordinary people. Why don't you practice hard instead of being addicted to music, chess, calligraphy and painting? Shenzhen was silent. Guan began to clear the table. After a while, Shenzhen said with emotion, as expected of the person who wrote Taixuan Immortal Lord. Sure enough, you are the only one in this world who can understand me. If you die, I will not only have no books to read, but also no close friends. No, I can't let you die. I'll tell you a secret. She raised her hands and waved her sleeves, closing the door. A piece of talisman flew out of her sleeve and stuck it on the door and window. Guan looked at her curiously. What secret could save his life? There are people in Taixuan Sect who want to practice magic skills to achieve higher cultivation levels and deal with the future demon catastrophe. However, there is no certainty yet whether this skill will work, so your outer city is just an attempt. This matter they can't do it blatantly. After all, it will damage the reputation of the famous family, so they use the pretense of arresting the demon cultivator to hide from others, Shenzhen said calmly, her eyes becoming more indifferent than ever. Guan frowned and asked, how do you know? Shenzhen replied, because Tian's sect is also trying this, sacrificing some low-level disciples in exchange for the longevity of the sect, and the merits will last forever. When Guan heard this, he felt extremely uncomfortable. What magic technique requires the sacrifice of disciples? Guan asked. In life, cultivating immortals is said to be against nature. In fact, the higher the realm, the more you can feel the destiny. This magic skill is to allow those great monks who can no longer break through to break the destiny. In short, you give up the medicine valley outside and stay. It's not good for you, because you are Panin, and they are afraid that you will write nonsense, so they don't dare to tell you. Don't say that I told you. Shenzhen's words silenced Guan. The distinction between good and evil becomes absurd at this moment. Shenzhen rolled his eyes and asked with a smile, by the way, you just read my book. What did you think of the content? That when Guan heard this, his expression became strange again, and he said seriously, actually, Qin Xia's travel notes also has flaws. There are some things that you don't need to learn. Why can't we learn? That is the most real collision and can best reflect people's true feelings. Do you have to write it? Can the protagonist not be called Guan? Thanks for watching the Invincible Harem and unlimited streaming for the reward of 1066 starting coins. Chapter 62 Preparing for a Breakthrough, Zhu Xian Sword Formation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What are you afraid of? You are not the only one named Guan in the world. Unlike you, I can make up characters at will. I need to recognize a person before I can write a story. In my eyes, you are the most suitable for the male protagonist. According to my understand, your only shortcoming is your low cultivation level. Shenzhen said seriously, which made Guan's face twitch. Is this a compliment? Why does it sound like a personal attack? If I show my cultivation, even your father may not be able to compare with me. Guan continued to persuade, but Shenzhen refused to change his name. Finally, Shenzhen offered to exchange a secret book for his name, and he could only agree. After Shenzhen left, Guan stayed in the attic and read the secret book she gave him, Xianing Ju. This is a musical art that can hurt people's internal organs and confuse the enemy's senses. It is very comprehensive. Guan just lacks this kind of magic and can further study it in the future. After reading Xianing Ju once, he threw it into his storage bag, then stood up and left. A month later, Guan came to the outer gate city. He first went to the elixir hall to submit this year's harvest. Elder Zhu Qinglu met him. He noticed that Zhu Qinglu's face looked tired, and there was a trace of demonic energy surging in his body, just like Lu Jiujia. Elder Zhu, you look bad, what's wrong? Guan asked. He didn't know how the outer sect's demonic skills were practiced, and some people were missing. But this time when he came to the outer sect city, he found that many disciples had a trace of hidden demonic energy in their bodies. These disciples were almost all disciples of various halls, not ordinary ones. Disciple. It was hard for him to judge whether he was complicit or being plotted, and Shenzhen didn't say much. Zhu Qinglu smiled and said, it doesn't matter if you're practicing martial arts. Don't you have a medicine valley in the inner gate? Move there quickly and don't stay in the outer gate. Demonic cultivators have been rampant recently and it's too dangerous outside. Guan asked tentatively, many people have told me that the outer gate is very dangerous now. If it is so dangerous, why don't more people from above be sent to exterminate the demons? Also, what is the area under construction in the city? It almost occupies a quarter of the city. When he first arrived at the outer gate city, he saw many disciples laying stones in the center of the city. Those stones were not ordinary stones and could contain spiritual energy. No matter how he looked at it, it felt like he was setting up a huge altar. Zhu Qinglu said casually, of course there are considerations from above. We can't speculate. What we can do is to protect ourselves as much as possible. As for the things built in the city, it is a formation that can protect the outer gate in the future. Seeing him like this, Guan felt that he didn't look like a good person. He was afraid that he knew the inside story and benefited from it. Guan stopped asking questions, the two exchanged a few polite words, and then he left. After walking out of the elixir hall, Guan stood on the street and looked at the formation under construction from a distance. The sky was covered with clouds, and the once prosperous and sunny outer city looked so gloomy, like a land of magic. Guan stopped on the spot and looked at it for a long time before turning and leaving. The autumn wind blew through the street, blowing the hem of his clothes. The Qinghong sword at his waist swayed slightly, and the scabbard shone with a cold light. After leaving the outer city, Guan went to take care of the caves. When he arrived at Li Xuanyu's cave, he found that she was in the cave. From now on, you don't have to come. I have to go to the inner gate. These are your rewards. Li Xuanyu said while sitting at the table. With a wave of her right hand, pieces of spiritual stones were piled on the table. Guan immediately saluted and then went to put the spirit stone into the storage bag. He didn't say much and turned to leave. Li Xuanyu looked at his back and asked coldly, I heard that your kicking skills are very good. Guan stopped, looked back at her, and said, Senior brother Li, did you say that my leg skills are not comparable to his? Some time ago, Li stayed in Xian Valley and saw Tang Yu practicing the residual wind kick, and then he learned about Gu An's deeds of defeating Meng Lang with the residual wind kick. I didn't expect him to tell Li Xuanyu so quickly. Well, I was just asking casually. Li Xuanyu said calmly. She paused and said, I look forward to the day when you enter the inner gate. Then you and I will compete again. Guan was confused and said helplessly, how can I compete with you, senior sister? There is no way I can catch up with you. Let's go back. Li Xuanyu did not answer his words, but issued an order to expel the guests. Guan could only leave. After leaving her cave, Guan didn't feel much psychological burden. As long as he refuses to admit it, what can Li Xuanyu do to him? Late at night, Guan was walking in the mountains and forests. In the afternoon, he had told Wu Xian that he had to go out and would not be back until tomorrow. The reason why he said it in advance was because he was preparing for a breakthrough. Once a breakthrough is made, there will be a lot of noise. If the disciples look for him at that time and find that he is not in the house, they will easily become suspicious. Ever since he went to the outer gate city, Guan felt a strong dangerous atmosphere. Those in power were practicing magic, and the nobles' children were fleeing from the outer sect. All these signs made him worried. Although the 9th level of crossing the void realm was strong, Taixuan sect was not without the realm of crossing the void, so after struggling for several days, Guan decided to break through the 1st level of the great realm first. At worst, the million-year lifespan function will be unlocked 1 year later. This time, he took a long detour, traveling 300 miles at night, and stopped in a dense mountain forest. The reason why he stopped was because he felt the breath of 2 nascent souls, one of which he had felt before. Left sword. Sanhu swordsman, who learned swordsmanship near Xian Valley, was injured by Guan as Fei sword immortal. After that, Guan only saw him at the Ji family's residence. Guan has suppressed his aura to the lowest level and is not afraid of being discovered by the nascent soul realm. A few miles away, in the sky above the mountain forest, Sui Yijian, dressed in blue, stood in the sky, with 5 swords suspended next to him, surrounding him, showing off his swordsmanship. Confronting him was a man wearing a large black robe. He was tall, holding a long staff. He had thick eyebrows and leopard eyes, and a square and majestic face. His black robe was violently beating, and his overwhelming domineering momentum made the woods below move. Tumbled aside. Zui Jian, why don't you just stay at the inner door and read, why do you have to stop me? The man in black robe asked coldly. Zui Jian said with an expressionless face, Chen Xianjin, as the great elder of the outer sect, you practice magic and harm your fellow sections. It's not me who stops you, it's you who have done many unjust things. I'm here to accept you on behalf of heaven. When Chen Xianjin heard this, he couldn't help but laugh with contempt. Don't you know who I am working for? Chen Xianjin snorted coldly. He then struck the long staff in his hand, and circles of purple light burst out from the bottom of the staff, condensing purple runes to form a complex and mysterious formation. More than 100 feet in diameter, when the edge of the formation was about to touch Zui Jian, it was blocked by the invisible sword intention. From a high altitude, it seemed as if a piece was missing from the edge of the purple light formation. Of course I know that I can't deal with him, but I can deal with you and kill you. Even if the next outer sect elder still does evil things, at least during this period, I can protect the outer sect disciples. Zui Jian said expressionlessly. The 5 swords around him were unsheathed at the same time, and the sword light shone in the night sky. You want to kill me? Chen Xianjin seemed to have heard a big joke, his face became ferocious, his momentum suddenly exploded, a strong wind suddenly started, and the woods within a radius of 10 miles shook violently. Zui Jian's face changed slightly and his eyes couldn't help but narrow. You who are on the 1st level of the nascent soul realm can kill me who are on the 9th level of the nascent soul realm. Zui Jian, do you think I won't dare to kill you because you have your master as your backer? Since you take the path of power and don't follow the same path, you are making a mistake. Saving some mediocre outer disciples is more important than saving the entire Taixuan dynasty. If you don't understand, then you live in vain. Chen Xianjin stood proudly, his domineering momentum squeezing the sword shadow of Zui Jian, making all 5 of his swords tremble. I'll give you one last chance. It's still too late to turn back now. Either go back and watch your book The Romance of the Gods or die. The long staff in Chen Xianjin's hand gushed out billowing demonic energy, and actually condensed into a huge black dragon entrenched around him. Zui Jian took a deep breath and said, since you mentioned Fengshen Yanni, do you know about the immortal killing sword formation? Killing immortal sword formation. Chen Xianjin was moved, with a look of astonishment in his eyes. Guan, who was secretly paying attention from afar, was also moved. 1 qi and 3 clears are even more amazing, and the wonderful method in the pot penetrates shimi. As Zui Jian muttered, the swords around him trembled and quickly dispersed, forming an array of evil spirits rising into the sky. Guan, who was staying under the tree, was stunned. Can you still discern Taoism by reading a book? Is he a genius? Chen Xianjin was also frightened and immediately cast a spell to attack. The war is about to break out. The sky shook and the earth shook, and the mountains and forests fell. Guan stood under the tree, unmoving, his pupils flashing with sword light, staring closely at Zui Jian's figure. After 10 breaths, the battle is over. Guan breathed a sigh of relief. I was shocked. Guan really thought that Zui Jian had figured out the immortal killing sword formation from the Romance of the Gods. If this is the case, doesn't it mean that Fengshen Yanni is true? That's great. Zui Jian used his own sword technique, which was indeed powerful and could compete with a great monk on the 9th level of the nascent soul realm, but he did not last long. The remaining clouds in the night sky dispersed, the mountains, rivers and woods became barren, and dust flew upward. Chen Xianjin was suspended in the air, gasping for air, with a look of lingering fear on his face. His eyes looked down at the billowing dust below. He could feel that Zui Jian was still alive, and he frowned, feeling very confused. Although he wanted to kill Zui Jian, his reason told him that killing Zui Jian would probably cause trouble. Although he is in the nascent soul realm, he is still a pawn in Taixuan sect. At this moment, a sound broke through the air, causing Chen Xianjin to glance over in shock. His pupils suddenly dilated, a ray of cold light rushed from the horizon, scattering dust along the way and rolling up countless leaves, like a cold sword cutting through the years. Zui Jian, who was lying in the ruins, felt something and subconsciously opened his eyes. The dust above him was suddenly swept away, and the night sky was reflected in his pupils. There was a bright light in the darkness, which was so bright. It's him. Zhou Yijian's eyes widened as he witnessed the leaf filled with sword energy pierce Qin Shuanjin's chest, splattering blood across the night sky. Only at this moment did Zhou Yijian understand, Fei Yi Jianxian didn't hurt him maliciously at the beginning, but was giving him guidance. Otherwise, how could he survive? Now Fei's sword immortal came to save him, which made him surprised and ashamed. Who is this senior? Thanks to Xiang for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 63 Breakthrough in the Fusion Realm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Qin Xianjin was pierced through the chest by a leaf with sword energy, his spiritual power collapsed. He widened his eyes and was so scared that his liver and gallbladder were about to burst. He immediately escaped from the nascent soul and fled to the horizon. In the shaking forest, Guan calmly watched Qin Xianjin escape. He deliberately did not kill Qin Xianjin. If he killed him, he would only have 20 to 30 years of life. It would be better to let him go back and deter the people behind the scenes. Even if he killed Qin Xianjin now, someone would take over Qin Shuanjin's position, which would only treat the symptoms but not the root cause. If he could not deter him and threatened his Xian Valley, then Guan could only treat the root cause himself. In the dark night, Guan's eyes were so cold. He turned and left, quickly disappearing in the forest. In the ruins, Zhou Yijian struggled for a long time before he stood up. He was covered in blood and dirt and was extremely embarrassed. He shouted loudly for the senior, but no one responded to him. He had to sit cross-legged and practice his skills to heal his wounds on the spot. On the other side, Guan moved forward quickly, traveling a long way, galloping thousands of miles, and then he stopped. He was still hiding in the woods. He lifted his clothes, meditated in front of the tree, and then called up his attribute panel. Looking at his lifespan of more than 100,000 years, he took a deep breath, crossing the void realm and crossing the tribulation. I don't know how many times he will fail, but he has made up his mind that no matter how many times he fails, he must break through. Otherwise he will feel insecure. Invest 10,000 years of life first. You invest 10,000 years of life in your cultivation to evolve and practice. You absorb qi and practice for 100 years. You use the great attainments of Yanmu Hunyuan Gong to forcefully impact the fusion realm and start to cross the tribulation. You did not survive the 5 elephants' divine thunder tribulation and failed to cross the tribulation. You absorb qi and practice for 400 years. You use the great attainments of Yanmu Hunyuan Gong to forcefully impact the fusion realm and start to cross the tribulation. You did not survive the 5 elephants' divine thunder tribulation and failed to cross the tribulation. Start to fail continuously. Cross the tribulation once every 300 years. No wonder Taixuan sect has to practice magic skills to break through the destiny. This realm is really difficult to break through. After 10 consecutive failures, Guan's heart began to tremble. Is it so difficult? He practiced the Wuji Wuzong Xiantian step, the great yin and yang transformation, and mastered 2 magical powers. Is it difficult to overcome the tribulation? Guan noticed that most of his tribulations were related to the 5 elements. Could it be that the tribulations he encountered were much more difficult than those of others? After forming the pill, Liya once said that the tribulations are also divided into categories. Different cultivators may encounter different tribulations, which are mainly related to their own qualifications and skills. Guan's eyes were stern. No matter how difficult it is, we must succeed. God will not let down those who krypton destiny. You have been practicing qi for 5,400 years. You used the great attainments of Yanmu Hunyuan Gong to forcefully impact the fusion realm and began to overcome the tribulation. You did not survive the 5 elephants' divine thunder tribulation and failed to overcome the tribulation. You have been practicing qi for 5,700 years. You used the great attainments of Yanmu Hunyuan Gong to forcefully impact the fusion realm and began to overcome the tribulation. You did not survive the 5 elephants' divine thunder tribulation and failed to overcome the tribulation. The failure prompt is still continuing. Guan hurriedly looked at his attribute panel and felt relieved when he saw his lifespan. He was still very confident. However, he did not succeed until 10,000 years had passed. His mentality almost couldn't hold on, and he hurriedly invested another 1,200 years. Failure. 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 Gu En's eyes were red, and he invested another 1,200 years. Failure. Failure. Success. You have been practicing Qi for 900 years. You have used your great accomplishments in Yangmu Hunyuan Gong to forcibly impact the fusion realm and begin to overcome the tribulation. You have survived the 5 elephants' divine thunder tribulation, overcome the tribulation successfully, and break through to the first level of the fusion realm. You have been practicing Qi for 1,200 years, and your cultivation has increased. Success. Guan breathed a sigh of relief. It took him 12,400 years to break through successfully. Although the lifespan consumed by the evolution of lifespan exceeds the actual cultivation, it still makes him feel pressured. The fusion realm is still like this, what about the future realm? But on second thought, with his initial qualifications, he can reach the fusion realm before the age of 50. How incredible is it? It's not life that is kryptoned, it's all numbers. Guan adjusted his mentality, opened the lifespan barrier, and prepared to enjoy the improvement of his cultivation. The ground began to overflow with spiritual energy, which appeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than 3 breaths, the ground showed green waves, which were transformed by the wood attribute spiritual energy. The spiritual energy poured into his body, setting off a whirlwind around him. The movement began to get bigger and bigger. Guan felt that the movement this time would be greater than before. It seemed that he had only broken through one level, but the spiritual energy required for this level was not comparable to the previous levels. As the spiritual energy entered his body, Gu En's cultivation began to improve. At the same time, the perception of the fusion realm emerged in his mind, as if he had really experienced years of cultivation. Outer Gate City, in a mansion, Chen Xuanjin's nascent soul was suspended in front of the table. His face was gloomy and his eyes were fixed on the bronze mirror in front of him. Soon, a blurry face was reflected in the mirror, and an indifferent voice came from it. Why are you looking for me so late? I was almost killed by Fei Jianxian, and Zui Yijian. He stopped our plan. Chen Xianjin gritted his teeth and said, his tone was full of unwillingness and a hint of fear. When the flying leaf pierced his body, Chen Xianjin felt like he was facing death. He was now very scared. He felt that if he reacted slower, he might die. The person in the mirror fell into silence when he heard it. Chen Xianjin did not disturb him and waited quietly. After a while, Chen Xianjin seemed to feel something, and his face changed drastically. The spiritual energy is sinking again, Chen Xianjin said hurriedly, looking outside the door, as if he was afraid that Fei Jianxian would come to kill him. Tomorrow, I will come to the outer gate in person, the person in the mirror said, and the picture in the mirror disappeared as soon as the voice fell. Chen Xianjin turned and looked out the window. The dark clouds in the sky gradually covered the bright moon, as if terror was coming, making his heart more and more panic. Not only did he feel the spiritual energy sinking, the entire outer gate city was alarmed, and more disciples flew into the air. Recently, the demon cultivators have been rampant, and disciples have disappeared from time to time. Tonight, the spiritual energy suddenly sank again. Who cannot panic? Yilan flew towards the law enforcement hall, and met Lu Jiujia flying towards him on the way. The two stopped at the same time. Lu Jiujia's face was grim, and he was hesitant to speak when he saw Yilan. Yilan said expressionlessly, "You guys are behind this again." Lu Jiujia shook his head and said, "No, the demon exorcist hall has already ordered a warning. This time it may really be an invasion by demon cultivators." "Really?" Yilan asked in a mocking tone. Lu Jiujia frowned. Yilan then asked, "Brother Lu, do you really think this path is right? They can be cruel to other disciples. Are you sure they will never attack you?" Lu Jiujia asked back, "If we don't take this path, what path will we take? Like you, join the law enforcement hall that may be disbanded at any time." The two looked at each other and confronted each other. In the end, the two passed by each other without saying anything harsh. The dark clouds rolled, and a huge upside-down vortex appeared in the night sky, which was extremely vast. The mountains and forests below were undulating like waves, which was extremely depressing. In a forest, in a dark place where no one could see, Guan was still meditating. Half an hour had passed, and his cultivation was still increasing. He had not yet broken through to the fusion realm. The spiritual energy required for the fusion state is too huge, far beyond Gu En's expectations. In such a state, how terrible is the reality of the tribulation. He suddenly felt that it didn't matter how many times he failed in the evolution of the tribulation. After all, if he failed once in the reality of the tribulation, he might die. Gu En felt his surging spiritual power and couldn't calm down. The fusion state has such a magnificent spiritual power. How powerful is the real immortal? He fell into infinite imagination. The earth's spiritual energy rushed into his body crazily, and the ground was emitting green air waves. He seemed to be in the ocean, outside the life barrier. The mountains and forests shook violently, and there were cultivators passing over Gu En's head, but no one noticed Gu En's figure. The impact he caused was not limited to this. To be precise, the entire Taixuan gate was affected. The woods outside the outer gate cities were shaking, making the Taixuan gate cultivators panic. This was not the first time Gu En had experienced this, so he was not panicked at all, and his mood was even a little playful. Want to do magic, want to sacrifice outer disciples, see if you panic. Gu En was very dissatisfied with the idea of sacrificing some people to fulfill the majority. It was not that he was so noble, but that the sacrifice involved him. Time continued to pass, more and more monks passed by Gu En's head, and he kept using his life to explore. More than 10 people in the transformation realm passed by, and he even saw the transmigration realm. Sure enough, Taixuan is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. As more and more transmigration realm monks passed by, Gu En actually saw Gu Zong. The patrolling Gu Zong had a very strong momentum, unlike the gentleness when he treated Gu En, and the strong sense of oppression made everything tremble. This night was destined to be unpeaceful. About half an hour later, Gu En finally broke through to the fusion realm, and his whole senses transformed. He felt that his body and soul were more compatible, and the process of the soul leaving the body became easier. Whether it was the control of the body or the control of the soul, it was far better than before. This feeling was so wonderful that he couldn't describe it. After reaching the fusion realm, Gu En's spiritual power was also changing, becoming stronger and more massive. His spiritual awareness range was increasing dramatically, but he did not deliberately explore it, fearing to disturb the great monks passing by in the sky. The number of great monks in the realm of crossing the void has exceeded 10. Gu En even saw a great monk in the realm of crossing the void with the surname Ji. No wonder the Ji family dared to open a mansion in Taixuan, and this person did not appear when Ji Xiaoyu held a banquet before. After another half an hour, Gu En's spiritual power growth rate began to slow down. This indicates that the breakthrough is about to end. Gu En's heart gradually regained its calm. This time, the lifespan consumed by the life barrier has exceeded 1,000 years, but he does not feel bad. After all, the life barrier helped him avoid the detection of hundreds of great monks. The great monk he identified has at least reached the nascent soul realm. This is just one direction of Taixuan. How many great monks will be added to check the other 7 outer gate cities? The only thing that makes Gu En feel at ease is that he can't see the figure of the great monk in the fusion realm for the time being. Although this cannot completely prove that the Taixuan sect does not have great cultivators in the fusion realm, it can at least be confirmed that the fusion realm is considered the top level in the Taixuan sect. Chapter 64, Tian Terrace, Mysterious Formation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The early morning sunlight cuts through the mountains and rivers of the earth and passes over the outer city. Disciples are constantly flying in and out, busy and depressing. In a mansion, Chen Xuanjin's nascent soul was suspended in the lobby. He lowered his head and was very nervous. In front of him, there was a man sitting on the first seat. He was wearing a black robe with dragon patterns. His face was young and handsome, but the majesty emanating from his eyebrows gave him a sense of oppression that was inconsistent with his appearance. His long hair was entangled in a silver crown with unicorn carvings. Next, he had a domineering air just sitting there. Your brother was killed by the demon cultivator of Qianqiu Pavilion, and now you are seriously injured by Fei Sword Immortal. Do you think Sui Yijian's master is related to Qianqiu Pavilion? The man in black robe said slowly. His tone was calm, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Chen Xianjin quickly raised his head and said, "We cannot rule out this possibility. It is not uncommon for Qianqiu Pavilion to place a master in Taixuan sect. Didn't you say before that there must be a master of Qianqiu Pavilion at the top?" Isn't it coming out now? Offending Xian will inevitably lead to constant troubles. If he can bring down the backer behind Xian, then Qian will not be afraid of Xian. The man in black robe narrowed his eyes and landed on Qian, who was so frightened that he quickly lowered his head. The lobby fell into silence again. For a long time, the man in black robe said in a faint tone, "Get ready to form an array." It just so happened that the demon cultivators were in trouble recently. After this incident, the blame can be placed on Qianqiu Pavilion's head. Qian said quickly, "But in my current state, I'm afraid. This time I will bear it myself." What? No, it's not yet certain whether this function will be successful. The Taoist sect is also waiting for us to try. Nothing is guaranteed to succeed. The road to immortality is to walk on a thorny road. This plan has been planned for 100 years. It is imperative for Taixuan sect to carry out it. We cannot let people in the dark destroy our plan. There is no need to persuade you. Hearing this, Qian could only suppress his worries and accept the matter. The other side, Guan called on the disciples to practice. The movements last night made the disciples restless all night, so they talked in twos and threes. Taixuan asked, "Master, why are you back so soon?" That the others followed and looked at Guan. Guan snorted, "Didn't you feel the movement last night? I was afraid that something would happen to you, so I hurried back." As soon as these words came out, all the disciples felt ashamed, feeling that they were too weak and always made their master worried. Taixuan said worriedly, "Senior brother, how about you go to the inner gate of Medicine Valley? We can disband and go to the outer gate to find a way out, so that you can be safe." It's not that he's afraid of death, he just doesn't want Guan to work too hard. Guan is already at the foundation building level, and his future is not comparable to theirs. Why should he always be frightened for them? Guan said, "If you want to go to the outer city, I can let you go, but I have to remind you that the outer gate may not be as safe as Xuangu, because there are always disciples missing in the city. I am not threatening or hinting at you, no matter what. I respect whatever you choose, and I can't force you to stay according to my own wishes. Whether you leave or not, the love for Xiangu will still exist." He spoke from the bottom of his heart. In his pursuit of immortality, he will inevitably experience life, death, and separation in the future. He has already made psychological preparations and does not care about the fate of others. Unless someone really makes him unable to let go, he will do whatever he wants. After hearing his words, the disciples were silent. "You look at me, and I look at you." Xian hesitated to speak, but still held back. "What are you going to do? If you go to work as a handyman disciple somewhere else, can you make elixirs for us like Master? Xuangu doesn't need so many handyman disciples at all, but Master still hired us, and the salary has not been reduced. We can't be ungrateful." Taixuan was the first to say that the thing he regrets most now is that when Qiu Qinli made trouble, he didn't rush to the front like Su Han. Once upon a time, Su Han had to chase him, but now Su Han has established a foundation, and he still doesn't know whether he can build a foundation in this life. This gap started from that calamity at that time. Taixuan didn't resent Guan, only felt guilty. He vowed to perform well and regain Guan's favor. As soon as he opened his mouth, other disciples responded, and the atmosphere became lively and no longer as oppressive as before. Guan smiled and then asked his disciples to continue practicing. Yilan came as soon as they finished practicing. After making sure that Guan was safe, she didn't stay long and left quickly. Guan stood in front of the window, looking in the direction of the outer gate city. There are still great monks flying in the sky from time to time, but the number is not as numerous as last night. Guan's consciousness can easily span thousands of miles and spy on the outer city. This is far from the limit of his consciousness. He saw that the construction of the huge formation was accelerating, and some disciples even began to carry spiritual stones. He watched silently, unable to tell what formation the formation was for the time being. The sinking of spiritual energy caused Taixuan sect to fall into turmoil, and the tense atmosphere lasted for nearly 10 days before relaxing. Guan was affected. Several outer sect disciples wanted to move to the cave, which made him lose several channels to collect lifespan. These outer sect disciples obviously wanted to escape from this outer sect city. Guan is not disappointed. He now has 3 medicine valleys, and his lifespan will only increase in the future. He is even preparing to expand the third Medicine Valley. He is now waiting for the outer sect matter to end quickly. As long as it does not threaten his Xuangu and the few people he cares about, he is too lazy to interfere in Taixuan's conspiracy. As Shenzhen said, even the Dao Tian sect, the first sect of the Dayu dynasty, was doing this kind of thing. Why did he bother to intervene forcibly? He did not have such a strong sense of justice and wanted to save the suffering. There was so much suffering in the world, he thought. Rescue, can it be rescued completely? And this kind of thing is not easy to manage. If he forcibly destroys Taixuan's plan, and Taixuan encounters a catastrophe of demons afterwards and cannot survive, he will be the sinner of Taixuan, and everyone in Taixuan will blame him. After all, except for those who were sacrificed, everyone else was the beneficiary. The people he saved might also think that they would not have been sacrificed without his intervention, and thus blame him. Guan couldn't save one group of people and then save another group of people, always shouldering the mission of saving the common people. He felt tired just thinking about it. Time continues to pass. On this day, Guan came to Tian Valley, first picked the mature herbs, and then led the 3 monkey monsters to sow them. Luo Hun came from behind and said, "A month ago, the spiritual energy of the earth sank. Many great monks of Taixuan sect were patrolling everywhere. Some people even passed by Tian Valley." "What happened to Taixuan sect?" Guan responded casually. "It seems that there is an invasion by a demon cultivator. By the way, Liu was injured by a demon cultivator before, and he is now recovering from his injuries in the inner sect." When Luo Hun heard this, his brows furrowed, and he turned and left, walking all the way into the forest. Later, Guan's consciousness saw him casting a spell on some kind of talisman. After his spiritual power was poured into it, the talisman burned and quickly turned into ashes. Guan was already in the fusion realm, and he could keenly detect a trace of spiritual power belonging to Luo Hun as it escaped to the sky at an extremely fast speed. It seemed that Luo Hun was tipping off Li Xiandao. Guan didn't think much and continued sowing. After sowing, he said a few words to the 3 monkey demons and then left Tian Valley. He cares more about the construction and development of Medicine Valley than those conspiracies, and focusing his energy on this is the only business. The sky was overcast with clouds, and the outer gate city was overcrowded. Su Han and Zhenqin stood in front of a stone tablet. Su Han read, "Mending the Sky Terrace." Following Zhenqin's gaze, in front of them was a huge formation that was more than 10 miles long and wide. It was extremely spectacular. There were stone statues standing on the edge of the formation, with different postures, all of which were images of ancient immortal gods. In the center of the Butian Terrace stands a stone pillar, 100 feet high. The pillar is square and has many dents on its surface, like the meridians of the human body, revealing signs of mystery. "Senior brother, what is the use of this sky-mending platform? Why do the sect call all the outer disciples back and have to gather on the platform tomorrow?" Zhenqin asked, her eyebrows slightly furrowed, and her tone was quite dissatisfied. Su Han looked at Bushiantai and said softly, "I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the sinking of the spiritual energy a month ago." People were coming and going on the street behind them, and many disciples stopped, also discussing the roof repair platform. Many disciples just came back and were shocked when they saw the Tianbu platform for the first time. Once such a large formation is activated, how powerful will it be? Zhenqin couldn't get the answer, so she couldn't help but turn her head and look in other directions. In a daze, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, but when she looked carefully, she didn't see that person, as if she had seen it wrong. "Weird." Zhenqin muttered. Among the crowd not far away, Jiang Qiong, dressed in Xing-Yi, strolled forward, her eyes squinting at the patchwork platform without any expression on her face. Beside her followed a hunched old man, holding a cane in his hand, his head only reaching her shoulders. "Miss, this formation is not simple. I'm afraid something big will happen tomorrow. Do we really want to stay?" The hunchbacked old man asked. Not only him, many disciples around him are worried and have various speculations. Jiang Qiong's expression remained unchanged as she replied, "It's indeed not simple. The restrictions within the array are very complicated. It would be difficult to complete the deduction without decades of work. But since we're all here, we have to take a look tomorrow. The hunchbacked old man looked at her and said with emotion, Miss, you have changed so much. You won't have anyone to worry about in this Taixuan sect, right? Indeed, that's why I invited you here. Huh, it seems like my old bones are going to have to be stretched again. The two chatted casually, and they did not mention Qianqiu Pavilion, so no one doubted their identities. At the same time, on the other side of the Tianbu Terrace, in a 9-story attic, two figures stood on the edge of the building. They both looked young, and one of them was Qin Xuanjin's backer, a man in black robes. The man in black robe looked down at the patchwork platform, his eyes were deep, and he didn't know what he was thinking. The young man next to him asked, Master, the outer disciples in this city should be back soon. Do you want to summon the handyman disciples from the nearby Medicine Valley, Animal Farm, and mine? That this voice was clearly Qin Xianjin. He took away the body of a young disciple. The man in black robe said softly, No need, there are too many servant disciples, and the cultivation level is not pure. Thanks to book friend 201905261306248828 for the reward of 200 starting coins, Lilong for the reward of 100 starting coins, book friend 2022501035533838 for the reward of 100 starting coins, and Xianzong Qinyan for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 65 Demon-Subduing Umbrella, Qinghong Trembling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. One night passed, and after dawn the next day, more and more outer disciples entered the outer gate city. The disciples of the Demon Exorcist Hall and the Law Enforcement Hall began to guard the city gates and check the ID cards of every disciple entering the city. There were already many disciples sitting in meditation and waiting on the Tian terrace. Su Han and Jin Qin stood on the edge of the terrace, looking up, and their brows were furrowed. Brother, I always feel something is wrong, how about retreating? Jin Qin whispered. She practiced the skills taught by Jiang Qiong, and her perception was sharp. Those disciples of the Demon Exorcist Hall standing on the edge of the Tian terrace made her feel uncomfortable, and this discomfort made her instinctively want to escape from here. Su Han also felt something was wrong, so he nodded and left with his sister. The two went against the current. Not only them, but also some disciples noticed something was wrong and wanted to leave the outer gate city, but more disciples chose to believe in Taixuan. All the way to the city gate, Su Han and Jin Qin were stopped by the disciples of the Demon Exorcist Hall. Today, they were only allowed to enter, not leave. Su Han looked at the big flags on the city wall, and frowned again. There were no big flags when he entered the city yesterday. Junior sister, I will attract attention, you prepare to escape. Su Han said with the sound transmission technique. Jin Qin looked at him subconsciously when she heard it. At this moment, Su Han suddenly drew his sword and rushed to the city gate in one step. How dare you! That the disciple guarding the city gate shouted angrily. Without his order, other disciples of the Demon Exorcist Hall around him immediately took action. Jin Qin wanted to support Su Han, but it was obvious that Su Han was surrounded. If she supported him now, she would be captured with Su Han. Doing so would only disappoint his kindness. She immediately moved towards the city gate, but there were nearly 100 disciples of the Demon Exorcist Hall in front of the city gate, and there were also people on the city wall, so it was difficult to escape. Jin Qin rushed towards the direction with the least number of people. At the same time, other disciples who wanted to leave the city also took action, and there was chaos in front of the city gate. The worst cultivation level of the disciples of the Exorcist Hall was at the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Su Han was soon pinned to the ground and could not move. He raised his head with difficulty, and saw Jin Qin being beaten to the ground, which made his eyes red. The one who injured Jin Qin was a woman wearing the black clothes of the Exorcist Hall. She came from outside the city and stopped in front of the city gate. She glanced at everyone and said coldly, Today we are investigating the spies of the demonic path. Whoever walks out will be confirmed as a demonic path. That as soon as these words came out, those restless disciples were relieved. It turned out that they were investigating the spies of the demonic path. No wonder the battle was so big. They were afraid that Taixuan would do something else. If it was just investigating the demon cultivators, they would not be afraid. They had a clear conscience. Su Han, Qin, and other disciples who took action were sealed with talismans by the disciples of the Exorcist Hall, and then escorted to the Tian. Near noon, the gates of the outer city were closed, a loud bell rang, and all the disciples in the city heard a majestic voice. All disciples immediately go to the Tian Terrace to gather. Disciples from all streets began to walk towards the Tian Terrace, and tens of thousands of disciples were already standing on the huge Tian Terrace. The news that the outer gate was going to investigate the spies of the demonic path had spread, and those disciples who were not spies of the demonic path were very relieved, and some even took in the qi and practiced on the stage. Yilan followed the disciples of the law enforcement hall to the edge of the Tian Terrace. When she was about to step on the steps, she suddenly saw a row of disciples who were pressed to kneel on the ground in the distance. Her eyebrows frowned because she saw Su Han and Qin. Their hair was messy and there was blood on the corners of their mouths. They had obviously just experienced a battle. She did not act rashly, but retracted her gaze and thought about how to rescue the two nephews. After thinking about it, she had to admit that the only person she could find was Lu Jiujia. The law enforcement hall had been completely suppressed by the demon exorcist hall. Even the hall master could not rescue people from the demon exorcist hall. Yilan could not help but start to worry about Guan, hoping that Guan had not entered the city. She always felt that today's matter was not as simple as catching the demon cultivator. As a disciple of the law enforcement hall, she could not escape just because of suspicion. She also had a little trust in the Taixuan sect in her heart, and believed that the activities of the demon elimination hall could only be carried out in secret. Far away, Jiang Qiong and the hunchbacked old man stood in front of the window of an attic. Not only them, but also some inner disciples who passed by the outer gate city did not go to the Tian Terrace. They were just curious about what the outer gate was going to do. Last night, a powerful divine sense checked the whole city. I'm afraid his cultivation has surpassed the God transformation realm. The hunchbacked old man frowned and said in a heavy tone. Beyond the God transformation realm? Jiang Qiong narrowed his eyes. The hunchbacked old man then asked, Miss, now tell me why you are here. Jiang Qiong looked at the Tian Terrace in the distance and said, to kill a traitor. Traitor? The hunchbacked old man looked puzzled. Time continued to pass. When the number of people on the Tian Terrace exceeded 100,000, the Tian Terrace still seemed empty. Lu Jiujia stood at the edge of the stage, scanning the disciples on the stage. The murderous aura between his eyebrows became more obvious, giving people a very dangerous feeling. Yilan came over, and seeing her, Lu Jiujia couldn't help frowning. Su Han and Qin were captured by your people, can you let them go? Yilan whispered. Although she had broken up with Lu Jiujia, she had to bow her head for the sake of the two juniors. If the victim was her, she could choose to die, but those two were Gu En's disciples, and she couldn't just ignore them. Lu Jiujia frowned more tightly when he heard it, but he still nodded slightly. Thank you. After Yilan finished speaking, she turned and left. Lu Jiujia looked at her back, hesitated to speak, and finally could only sigh, and then went to look for Su Han and the other two. After half a stick of incense, he took Su Han and Qin back to where he was standing. Qin asked cautiously, Uncle Lu, are you really just catching demon spies? Lu Jiujia nodded slightly but did not speak. Qin breathed a sigh of relief and said no more, while Su Han observed Lu Jiujia. And intuitively told him that something was not right with Lu Jiujia. Sudden, a red umbrella rose from behind a building to the east of the sky patching platform and quickly flew to the sky in the center of the sky patching platform, attracting many eyes. The red umbrella opened, and jade beads made of white jade fell down one by one. These jade beads were tied by curtain straps, swaying in the air, colliding with each other, and making crisp sounds. Boom! The red umbrella burst out with powerful spiritual power, and a pale golden halo expanded, quickly covering the entire outer gate city and connecting with the flags on the city wall. Everyone in the city looked up, some were surprised and some were frightened. A figure appeared out of thin air under the red umbrella, and it was the man in black robe. I am the elder of Taixuan Sect's main city, Xian. I am here to eliminate the demonic spies in the outer sect. The black-robed man named Xian spoke. After his words fell, the vast aura of the crossing void realm enveloped the entire outer gate, making everyone feel his power. Yilan looked up at Xian in the crowd, her eyes filled with shock. what level of cultivation can this kind of aura possess? Not only her, but Lu Jiujia, Su Han, and Zhen Qin were also shocked. Most of the outer disciples looked up at Chu Xian in awe as if they were looking at a god. The outer sect has established the demon elimination hall for many years, and many demon spies have been arrested. However, there are still demons committing crimes, so let's investigate the demon elimination hall first. Chu Xian's voice was so cold. After he finished speaking, the red umbrella on his head swayed, making a strange sound that resounded throughout the city. Lu Jiujia's expression changed drastically. He covered his chest with his hands, and knelt on the ground with a plop. Not only him, but the other disciples of the Demon Slayer Hall around him were also like this, and some even cried out in pain. "Uncle Lu, what's wrong with you?" Zhen Qin asked quickly, extremely nervous. Lu Jiujia felt like his whole body was being bitten by thousands of insects. He was in excruciating pain and was unable to answer. He could only raise his hand to signal Zhen Qin and Su Han not to come near him. The outer disciples on the stage looked at the demon-killing hall disciples in the peripheral area, and they were shocked. "The magic weapon on my head is the magic umbrella. Under the light of the umbrella, the evil spirit disappears. Anyone who practices magic will turn into blood." Chu Xian's voice sounded again. The roof patch exploded. "Are all demon cultivators in the demon elimination hall?" Over the years, the Demon Slayer Hall has arrested so many people. They are already disgusting. Now that they know that the Demon Slayer Hall is all demon cultivators, how can they not be angry? Various insults and reprimands were heard. Lu Jiujia was in unbearable pain, his forehead was pressed to the ground, and his whole body was shaking. "Damn," as expected. Lu Jiujia gritted his teeth and his face was extremely distorted. He was unable to mobilize the spiritual power in his body, and his heart fell into an unprecedented panic. He saw demonic energy rising up from his body. Not only him, but other demon-killing hall disciples also had demonic aura coming out of them, quickly rising into the air and swarming towards the demon-conquering umbrella. Yilan walked out of the crowd and saw Lu Jiujia's painful posture. She immediately stepped forward, took out the elixir from the storage bag and fed it to Lu Jiujia. This scene made other disciples start to curse her, but she remained indifferent. However, her elixir was of no use. "Senior, junior sister, run away." Lu Jiujia's difficult voice sounded like he had exhausted all his strength in every word. After the words escape fell, he immediately spat out a large mouthful of black blood. "What's going on?" that Yilan asked in a deep voice. She paused and said quickly, "I can't escape at all now. Unless the truth is revealed and the whole family resists, there will be a chance of survival." Lu Jiujia was unable to answer any more. He raised his right hand tremblingly and pointed his index finger at the sky. Yilan turned around and saw that the person he was pointing to was none other than Chu Xian in the sky. "The next step is to track down the demon spies on the stage." Chu Xian's voice rang out, instantly making the noisy Tianbu Tai quiet down. At this moment, even the disciple with a clear conscience suddenly panicked. The magic umbrella swayed again, and the strange sound made everyone's heart palpitate. Yilan seemed to feel something. She looked down suddenly and saw dense blood streaks on the ground of the patchwork platform, like some kind of weird writing. Her feet happened to step on the blood streaks, and an evil force penetrated through them. After entering her body, it forcibly sealed her spiritual power, making her unable to move. She trembled all over, and the Bailing sword at her waist made a sound. All the disciples on the stage knelt down in unison, like waves rising and falling, and there were also dense blood streaks under their feet. "I didn't expect the demonic invasion to be so deep. If that's the case, then there is no need for this outer gate to exist." Chu Xian's voice fell from the sky. It was so cold, making everyone feel like they were falling into the abyss. Xuangu, in the attic, Guan was writing a book when the table suddenly vibrated, causing him to stop writing. His eyes glanced at the Qinghong sword placed on the table next to him. At this moment, the Qinghong sword was vibrating violently. The blade seemed to be about to rush out of the sheath, and there was a faint sound of some kind of bird chirping. Looking at Qinghong's sword, Guan's eyes changed. "You should be able to guess what will happen next. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes." Chapter 66, Remarks on the Launch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It will be on the shelves at 12 noon tomorrow. Thanks to the editor-in-chief Beha and the editor-in-charge Kanan for taking charge of this book, thanks to the old editor Fuchen for the encouragement, thanks to the operation officer Dan Xiang for organizing activities in the book review area, and thanks to all the readers who have supported it until now. In a few words, from the issue on May 21 to the shelf on June 22, 200,000 words in 1 month, it is not slow for a new book. Although I have written Go Dao, this book is written very carefully. After writing 2 chapters, I have to spend half an hour checking word by word. The dialogue will be carefully considered to make the characterization more vivid, and strive to write a brand new story, which is both refreshing and interesting. The worldview of this book will be very large, so you don't have to worry about being invincible too early, nor do you have to worry that I will deliberately suppress the realm. I have been writing books for 10 years without realizing it, and the time is just at this stage. After the college entrance examination, I published a book on Xian for the first time, officially signed a contract for serialization, changed my pen name in the middle, and now I am about to be 28 years old. I feel that time seems to have pressed the acceleration key in recent years. Speaking of acceleration, everyone must hope that I will speed up the update. There will be a burst of updates on the day of the release, and as many updates as possible. From the next day, normal updates will be started. 1 chapter will be added for every 500 monthly tickets. If there are more rewards, there will be more chapters. It depends on the specific situation. It is not good to promise too much. First, I am afraid that I can't do it, which is meaningless. Second, I can't water down the plot for the sake of speed. As usual, open the market, guess the update, and have fun. Tomorrow update 2 chapters, mediocre, chapter review deduction 1, tomorrow update 3 to 5 chapters, salty fish shake, chapter review deduction 2, tomorrow update 5 to 7 chapters, a little interesting, chapter review deduction 3, tomorrow update to 7 to 10 chapters, full of momentum, chapter review deduction 4, more, not much hope, but not impossible to think about, deduction 5. Chapter 67 The Sword Falling from the Sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the heaven-building platform, hundreds of thousands of disciples knelt and prostrated. The blood lines under their feet surged and turned into wisps of blood, wrapping around their bodies. Elder, I am not a demon spy. You are the demon cultivator. You are a thief. You must die a good death. It's ridiculous. There are so many demon spies. It's really a big joke. I didn't expect Taixuan Sect to be so dark. They said that Taixuan is the most upright person. Ha ha ha, it won't be long before the Taixuan dynasty will be destroyed. Xian, even if I die and become a ghost, I will never let you go. Aren't you afraid that humans and gods will be angry and suffer retribution for such an act? Cries, begging for mercy, curses, etc., all kinds of sounds filled the outer city. On the stone pillar in the center of the sky-patching platform, blood began to flow upward from the grooves in the grooves, as if the meridians were congested with blood, which was strange and terrifying. Rolling clouds came from all directions, quickly covering the sky above the outer gate city, making the city dark. The pale golden light shield emitted by the demon-conquering umbrella began to appear, covering the whole city. Those disciples who had not gone to the sky-building platform wanted to escape from the city, but they could not get out at all. Yilan trembled and wanted to stand up, but she couldn't do it at all. She felt her spiritual power being drained away, and her eyes were full of fear and despair. Su Han and Jin Qin on the side were in the same situation. They couldn't even speak and could only wait desperately for death to come. Distance, in the attic, the hunchbacked old man looked at Chu Xian's figure with a solemn expression and said, I didn't expect him to be so powerful. The genius of Taixuan Sect is really not simple. It's only been a few years. Jiang Qiong's eyes also showed fear. Just facing Chu Xian's pressure, she did not dare to act rashly. The gap was too huge. So that's it, the legendary nirvana formation of the universe. Jiang Qian was talking to herself, and the hunchbacked old man couldn't help but look at her and said, "Miss, I'm afraid this formation will threaten us, so we should evacuate quickly." Jiang Qian nodded. Her target was not Chu Xian. Chu Xian's appearance caught her by surprise, especially the Qinghong Nirvana formation, which had a huge impact on her. The two men immediately turned around and prepared to evacuate the outer gate city. Rumble, the clouds in the sky produced thunder, like a god roaring, suppressed and loud. Chu Xian looked up, his eyes calm. He just glanced at it and then looked at the city again, looking at the hundreds of thousands of disciples struggling below. There was compassion in his eyes. If you make sacrifices for the future of Taixuan sect, your whole life of cultivation will not be in vain. He talked to himself, as if to comfort himself. The pity in his eyes gradually disappeared, and his eyes became indifferent. He raised his hand and grabbed the demon-conquering umbrella, preparing to increase his strength and refine the cultivation of all the disciples on the stage in one go. Yilan was already lying on the ground. She raised her eyes with difficulty. Under the rolling thunder clouds, Chu Xian's figure was so terrifying, but at this moment, what she saw was not Chu Xian, but another figure. She was worried that Guan wouldn't be able to escape this disaster. She felt regretful that she should have gone to Guan yesterday and asked him to leave Taixuan early. What happened today is outrageous. And Chu Xian will definitely kill all the servant disciples who belong to this outer gate city. There were more and more bloody runes on her body, like chains, pulling her tightly, as if dragging her into the ground. Unprecedented fatigue surged toward her like a stormy wave, and her eyelids trembled and closed. The Bailing sword at her waist was still trembling, as if she was anxious for its master. At this time, Yilan seemed to feel something and subconsciously opened her eyes to look. The sun shone on her face. Not only her, but other disciples who endured torture also opened their eyes because the sky suddenly became brighter. The bloody Lu Jiujia could only look at the sky with his peripheral vision. Under his gaze, the rolling thunderclouds in the sky had been dispersed. Judging from the signs of cloud waves on the horizon, it was obvious that they were dispersed by some powerful force. Jiang Qiong and the hunchbacked old man who were walking quickly on the street could see it more clearly. They turned to look and then stopped. Above the demon-conquering umbrella, there was a sword floating outside the pale golden light shield. The sword was surrounded by the sword energy, and the sword body could not be seen clearly. It could only be seen that it was a slender sword. Chu Xian raised his head and moved the magic umbrella away, his brows furrowed. "Who?" His voice sounded, with a hint of nervousness in his tone, this word who gave hope to everyone in the city, and the eyes of the disciples who were sealed in the Tianbu platform were full of hope. Boom! A domineering sword intent burst out from the sword shadow in the sky, and suddenly crushed the pale golden light curtain covering the entire city. Chu Xian's expression changed greatly, and he immediately poured his spiritual power into the demon-conquering umbrella. The demon-conquering umbrella shook violently, bursting out with powerful force to resist Jian Ying's sword energy. Combine! Chu Xian's eyes widened, and as soon as he uttered a word, the sword shadow fell in an extremely domineering manner, dissipating the vast power of the demon-conquering umbrella, crushing the demon-conquering umbrella head-on, and then piercing through his body. Like a falling star, the shadow of the sword fell from the sky and landed on the sky-patching platform. The sword blade sank into the platform stone and trembled continuously. The powerful sword intent burst out and scattered all the bloody runes on the platform. The huge stone pillar suddenly shattered. The sword intent passed over Yilan's body, causing her robe to flutter, and her whole body felt like she was awakening from a nightmare. Su Han and Zhen Qin did the same, and they quickly stood up. After more and more disciples got rid of their restraints, they stood up and turned to look at the sword shadow in the center of the stage. In their eyes, this sword was not scary because it saved them. Someone looked up and saw that Chu Xian was still suspended in the air, holding the pole of the magic umbrella in his right hand. His body was trembling, and blood flowed uncontrollably from his 7 orifices. "Why?" Chu Xian said in a trembling voice. Before he could finish his words, bursts of sword light erupted from his body, followed by ashes and smoke. Even his soul could not escape. The sky then glowed with a dark yellow light, as if dusk was coming. How is it possible? He is in the realm of crossing the void. The hunchbacked old man's eyes widened and his tone was full of horror. Xiang also found it difficult to remain calm. Xian was already above the realm of gods. What kind of cultivation level could kill Xian with one sword? Following her gaze, there was a pillar of air descending from the sky, connected to the sky-patching platform, as if dividing the entire world into two. That's sword energy. Such a sword cultivator was born in this world. At this moment, Xiang felt very small and mediocre. The 100 years of injury seemed to have eliminated her from the world of immortality. At the same time, the third medicine valley, under a big tree, Mr. Tian looked in the direction of the outer gate city. Even though he was far away, he saw the sword energy pillar above the sky-butting platform. Combined. Mr. Tian muttered to himself, his voice only heard by himself. On the top of the mountain at the edge of the medicine valley, Yi Yan stood facing the wind. A strong wind suddenly blew in front of him, pulling his robe back. He was holding a long spear, and his body was as loose as a pine, not swaying. He squinted his eyes and looked at the sword energy pillar in the distance, his heart filled with surprise. Dozens of miles away, Shenzhen stood on the cliff, with the cave gate behind her. The wind and waves blew her black clothes and her veil, making the lower half of her face looming. The sword energy column was also reflected in her pupils, and her eyes were full of curiosity. There is such a sword cultivator hidden in Taixuan. She couldn't help but think of the flying leaf sword immortal who picked leaves to kill nascent soul. No one knew how high his level was, or even who he was. Yi Lan stood on the edge of the sky-building platform, with hundreds of thousands of disciples in front of her. She couldn't see the shadow of the sword surrounded by the sea of people, but her eyes couldn't help but look at the Bailing sword at her waist. The sword was still trembling slightly. There was a complicated look in her eyes. At this moment, the outer disciples in front of them retreated one after another and made loud noises. Yi Lan was attracted by a sharp sound. That's the sound of a sword grinding against a stone. She immediately jumped up, stepped on the flying sword, and reached high in the sky. Not only her, but tens of thousands of disciples also did the same, flying into the air. The scene was extremely spectacular. Everyone who came to the air widened their eyes, because they saw the shadow of the sword that killed Xian moving quickly. The blade was still embedded in the stone of the platform, sliding all the way, sparks bursting out, and the sword's intention overflowing. Elder Lu Chang from the library frowned and read, "The right way." When the sword shadow wrote the last stroke, the sword shadow took off, passed over the heads of all the disciples, and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Everyone turned to look at the patchwork platform and saw two large characters carved in the center of the platform, "Right way." The writing is full of energy, showing the ultimate sharpness and chilling air. Xiang and the hunchbacked old man also flew into the air and saw the two big characters. The two demon cultivators from Qinshu Pavilion were also shocked. Taixuan Jingdao did evil things, but was eventually stopped by the mysterious sword cultivator, leaving the word Jingdao behind. What does this mean? Although there are darkness in Taixuan, there are also great monks with righteous hearts. Xiang had always scorned the name of Taixuan's right path, thinking that Taixuan was just fooling the people of the world, but now she suddenly felt that Taixuan might not be so bad. Xuangu, in the attic, Guan sat at the desk, his brows slightly furrowed. Someone locked his Qinghong sword, which made it difficult for him to take back the Qinghong sword directly. He was wielding the sword with his sword intention. The previous sword attack was not an ordinary attack. It was the move of the Taixuan Jingshan sword, the Taixuan Jingshan sword that has mastered the realm of fusion. Since you want to chase me, it's just right to let you know that there is a sword hanging above your heads in Taixuan Sect. Guan thought silently, and then picked up the brush, ready to test whether he could multi-purpose. Qinghong sword is already more than 6,000 miles away from him, and the distance is still widening rapidly. Above the sea of clouds, the Qinghong sword, surrounded by sword energy, shuttled quickly, leaving a long wave of air along the way that extended to the end of the sky. Suddenly, Qinghong's sword stopped and hung above the clouds. In less than 3 breaths, a golden light rushed from the horizon and quickly came to the front of Qinghong's sword. Less than 100 feet away, the golden light dissipated, and a man wearing a blue robe appeared. He was holding a fly whisk in his hand, and he looked like an immortal, but his face was a little solemn. Who is your excellency? I have never heard of a fusion realm sword cultivator in the Taixuan dynasty. The man in Taoist robes asked with a serious tone. Chapter 68 The Angry Deputy Sect Leader. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The voice of the man in the Taoist robe echoed above the sea of clouds, and his eyes were fixed on the Qinghong sword. He could not identify the true body of the sword, because his spiritual sense could not penetrate the sword energy on its surface, which frightened him. This man's sword attainment was definitely the strongest he had ever encountered. However, he did not wait for a response. It seemed that there was only him and the sword in the whole world, and there was no second person, but he could feel a trace of spiritual fluctuations on the Qinghong sword, indicating that the sword was controlled by someone, which made his mind tense and ready. At this moment, the Qinghong sword burst out with a powerful sword intent. In an instant, rolling thunderclouds came from all directions, making the whole world dark. The terrifying sword intent locked onto the Taoist robe man, which moved him. Thousands of thunder and lightning intertwined in the thunderclouds above, and the blue thunder was like a group of dragons tumbling in the sea of clouds. The sword energy on the Qinghong sword surged wildly, like a raging flame burning. The man in the Taoist robe immediately waved his whisk, and a stream of qi spurted out, condensing around him into a huge golden mountain. On top of the mountain, a number of statues of gods rose up, as if shouting silently. A rainstorm suddenly fell, and the wind howled through the clouds. Under the flashing lightning, the Qinghong sword, which was surrounded by sword energy, seemed like a peerless magic sword, bringing great pressure to the man in the Taoist robe. The Qinghong sword soared up, and the tip of the sword pointed at the man in the Taoist robe. The man in the Taoist robe immediately waved his palm and hit, and the golden mountain on his body burst into brilliant light. All the statues waved their palms together, and the spiritual power turned into a magnificent group of light to kill the Qinghong sword, like a galaxy, across the sky. The Qinghong sword moved. Boom! Kill the man in the Taoist robe with one sword. The sword moved, the wind and thunder whistled, and the earth and sky shook. The cold light shone in the sky, and the Qinghong sword was like the fastest light in the world, the most violent thunder, and it was unstoppable to blast away all obstacles. The golden galaxy was directly dispersed, and the golden mountain on the man in the Taoist robe was instantly shattered, shocking him so much that he immediately jumped away. But the next second, the Qinghong sword had already killed him and chased him closely. He slapped out with one palm, and the space in front of him seemed to solidify. The invisible barrier forced the Qinghong sword to stop, and a wave of air was raised around it, giving the barrier a shape. Suddenly, the face of the man in the Taoist robe changed, and he secretly thought it was not good. Ping! The sound of the mirror breaking sounded, and the man in the Taoist robe subconsciously retreated. Time seemed to slow down. In his eyes, the tip of the Qinghong sword was getting closer and closer to him, and the sword energy was like a blooming flower, so brilliant and beautiful. Boom! The strong wind hit the man in the Taoist robe head-on, and his hair crown was blown off. His black hair fluttered randomly, and his Taoist robe was pulled back frantically. The sea of clouds behind him was all swept away, and the thunderclouds above were torn apart, and the sun shone down, as if a huge gap was cut in the sky, extending to the horizon. The man in the Taoist robe widened his eyes, looking at the sword hanging in front of him, and his emotions could not calm down. This sword could hurt him completely, but it stopped when he could not defend himself. Under his gaze, he saw the Qinghong sword slowly falling. He seemed to understand something, and did not dodge or attack. The Qinghong sword gently poked his chest, tapped 3 times in a row, and then turned and left, faster than he had seen when he chased before. The man in the Taoist robe did not chase him again this time, because he knew that it was meaningless to chase again, and he was not the opponent at all. His face gradually became gloomy, and the sunlight shining on him made him feel so dazzling. Inside the house, Guan raised his other hand while writing and caught the Qinghong sword flying from the window. He let the Qinghong sword circle several times, and took it back when the disciples in the valley were not paying attention. After the previous fight, Guan suddenly became confident in his sword attainments. Killing Xian, who was in the realm of crossing the void, gave him a lifespan of 93 years. The man in Taoist robes he met later was also in the realm of fusion. Judging from his aura, he should have just entered the realm of fusion like him, and at most not more than the 2nd level, but he was no match for his Taixuan Jinshan sword. He always thought that his actual combat ability was weaker in the same realm. Now he thought that he might have underestimated himself, even though he did not have much combat experience. His practice of magic and unique skills was real, not just fantasy. Not everyone can spend thousands of years practicing magic. Most of the immortal cultivators spend most of their time on chi training. Of course, it is better to fight with a higher realm against a lower realm. Guan put the Qinghong sword into the scabbard and put it on the table. He turned his head to look at the outer gate city. Many great monks of Taixuan had already rushed to the outer gate city. With more than 100,000 outer disciples alive, Xian's sins could not be hidden at all. Yilan and others were considered safe. Presumably, Taixuan would not practice that magic skill again in the short term. The two big characters Guan carved on the Tian Terrace became the focus of the monks' attention. The great monks marveled at his sword intent, while the outer disciples were indignant and cursed Xian, demanding that the top leaders must thoroughly investigate the matter. Because Xian used formations to isolate the outer city in advance, the errant disciples of Xian Valley did not hear any movement, but the sea of clouds in the sky was rolling, which made some disciples outside the house look a few more times. Half an hour later, monks began to fly over Xian Valley, which made the disciples in the valley talk about it. Guan did not go downstairs and pretended not to know about it. Today, Taixuan is destined not to be peaceful. After a night, in the early morning, Yilan, Su Han, and Zhenqin came back. Guan received them in the attic. Wu Xian and Xiaochuan insisted on joining in the fun, so Guan asked them to go in together. Zhenqin began to talk about yesterday's experience, which made Wu Xian and Xiaochuan feel excited. Yilan was unusually silent and did not stare at Guan all the time. Guan probably guessed the reason, so he pretended not to notice anything unusual about her. After Zhenqin and Su Han finished speaking, Wu Xian said sarcastically, "I have long seen that Taixuan sect is not as upright as the outside world said, but I never expected that it would be so shameless as to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of fellow disciples. Even if they are, there has never been such a crazy situation in Qianqiu Pavilion." Xiaochuan was also unhappy. Thinking of the demon cultivators he had encountered in Xian Valley over the years, he gritted his teeth and said, "Senior brother, how about we change to another sect? It's just as well to plant grass elsewhere." Guan rolled his eyes at him and said, "It's nonsense. Don't say such things in the future. No matter what, at least this matter has been interrupted. There are still righteous people in Taixuan sect." He couldn't bear to part with his inheritance, especially the 8 views cave heaven. The great monks from the main city of the sect have already come to seek justice, and they said that they will definitely give an explanation to the outer disciples. Let's see how the sect handles it later. Yesterday's incident was too big, and it will definitely spread to the world of immortal cultivation. "I can't hide it at all," Yilan said, not looking at Guan when she spoke. Su Han thought of something and said quickly, "Master, Uncle Lu is seriously injured. Even if he is alive in the future, I'm afraid." Guan actually saw Lu Jiujia's tragic situation yesterday, but there was nothing he could do. Lu Jiujia's cultivation had been drained, and even if he were alive, he would become a useless person in the future. At least it would be difficult for him to cultivate as an immortal. I don't know if Wu Xian's Dao Yen function can help him. You guys give him a message. If you don't mind him, you can come back to Xian Valley to find me, plant flowers and grass with me, and live a peaceful life. Guan sighed. When Lu Jiujia's fate was mentioned, the atmosphere in the room was extremely depressing. "Okay, you guys go down each, I'll have a chat with junior sister Yi." Guan waved his sleeves and said. Everyone saluted quickly, then turned and left. Zhenqin closed the door sensibly. When the door was about to close, she gave Guan a playful look, which made him dumbfounded. The room fell into silence. Guan could feel that Yilan's breath was not calm. He smiled and said, "Junior sister, are you scared? How about you rest in Xian Valley for a few days?" Yilan took a deep breath, turned to look at him, and said, "I was indeed frightened, but not frightened. Senior brother, I suddenly understood what you said before. It was indeed that I was confused. The road to immortality should focus on cultivation. If it would be the most tragic thing for you and me to hide in the mountains and meet the evil people like yesterday without being able to fight back. Hearing her say this, Guan was worried that she was under too much pressure. Junior sister, don't think too much. It's right to practice hard, but it's hard to encounter dangers like yesterday. Guan said seriously. Yilan nodded and said, although I don't know who the great monk was who took action yesterday, I will learn from him. When I am as strong as him, I will stand by your side again, senior brother. She smiled and raised her eyebrows at Guan. Seeing her return to her usual temperament, Guan also smiled. Then Yilan talked about the situation of the Demon Slayer Hall. Almost all the disciples of the Demon Slayer Hall were useless, but the main city of the sect was preparing to thoroughly investigate the Demon Slayer Hall. According to the information she received, this incident may affect the elders of the sect main city. Hall, in Taixuan sect, there is never a consensus. Everyone has his own opponents, and Xian has many opponents. Those people will definitely use this matter to exert their strength. Guan is also looking forward to changes in Taixuan. If it continues to be so bad, when he gets tired of it one day and is strong enough, he will let Taixuan change its voice. 2 days later, in the third medicine valley, Guan was checking the herbs when he suddenly felt 2 breaths. His brows moved slightly, but he did not look back. Not long after, Guzong landed with a man, who turned out to be the man in Taoist robes who had fought against Qinghong's sword before. Guan, come here. Guzong waved from a distance. Guan immediately turned around and walked away, throwing a lifespan probe at the man in Taoist robes. The lifespan of a person detected by spiritual consciousness cannot be detected, and the lifespan must be detected through the naked eye. Tian, first level of fusion realm 780/3300/3500. It is indeed the first level of fusion realm. His surname is Ji. Some time ago, he saw a great monk named Ji who was in the crossing realm, but he didn't expect that there was also a great monk named Ji who was in the fusion realm hidden in Taixuan sect. The background of the Ji family is really terrifying. Guan came all the way to Guzong and raised his hand in salute. Guzong smiled and said, Guan, this is the deputy sect leader and a member of the Ji family. When Guan heard this, he immediately saluted Ji Tian. Ji Tian nodded, smiled, and said, no need to be polite. After all, you are also from the Ji family. Let's go upstairs and talk. Guan immediately led the way. After going upstairs and entering the house, Guan closed the door, and Guzong followed suit and imposed a restraint. Ji Tian suddenly slammed the table and said angrily, this is unreasonable. It's simply lawless. Panon, you must write this down and expose Taixuan's sins to the whole world. Chapter 69, Promotion of Status, Looking for Panon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let me write. Guan didn't dare to answer. He didn't know why Ji Tian was angry. If Ji Tian asked Guan to discredit him, he wouldn't write it. Why are you so loud? Guzong said dissatisfiedly. He sat down and motioned Guan to sit next to him. Guan nodded, walked to the stool next to him and sat down. Ji Tian tried to calm down and said, using hundreds of thousands of disciples to refine the formation, is this really the right way? If it weren't for that mysterious sword cultivator, I would still be in the dark. That he was really uncomfortable. At that time, he was in seclusion and felt a strong sword intent. He was so shocked that he came out of seclusion immediately and traveled tens of thousands of miles to come. In the end, he didn't save Xian, but he heard the curses of those outer disciples, which made him angry and curious about the identity of the sword cultivator, so he chased after him. As a result, he was easily defeated by the other party. Since reaching the fusion realm, Ji Tian felt that he could walk sideways in the Taixuan dynasty. There were very few people who could compete with him, and almost all of them were old monsters who had been in seclusion for a long time. He had not tasted the taste of defeat for too long. The most important thing is that the other party not only defeated him, but also helped him. If that person had not taken action, when I came out of seclusion, would the hatred of the destruction of the outer sect have to be pressed on the demon sect? Ji Tian stared at Guzong and asked. Guzong smiled bitterly and did not answer, but his answer was already obvious. Ji Tian looked at Guan again and said, you have to write down everything that happened 3 days ago, including the despicable deeds of the Demon Elimination Hall and the sword cultivator who prevented the outer sect from calamity. You should also write it in The other party's ability to take action shows that he is also a member of the Taixuan sect, but he is very low-key. Promoting his merits can help the Taixuan sect maintain its image, at least it will not be labeled as a demon sect all of a sudden. Hearing that he can brag about himself, Guan felt no pressure, but he couldn't agree too easily. Guan pretended to be embarrassed and hesitated to speak. Tian frowned and asked, "Why? You don't want to do it," Guzong said unhappily, "such a big thing, if he dares to write it, he will definitely offend a lot of people. You can put him in huge trouble with just one sentence. You really dare to speak." Tian was embarrassed when he heard it. Guan took a deep breath and said, "I am definitely willing to work for Taixuan sect, but..." Guzong smiled and asked, "What do you want? Just say it." Tian frowned, but didn't say much. "I want to make my medicine valley bigger, that is, the third medicine valley of the inner sect. All the land within 100 miles will be allocated to me. I will grow more medicinal herbs and hand over the medicinal herbs to the sect as usual. I won't be greedy." Guan said seriously. Tian couldn't help asking when he heard it, "That's it? You can make higher and more requests?" He thought Guan would ask for a lot, but he didn't expect that it was just this request. Guan nodded and said, "I just want these. I have mediocre talent. If I want treasures and skills, it will only cause trouble. Planting herbs is my hobby. It can give me more inspiration when writing books, and it can also contribute to Taixuan." Tian couldn't help but look at Guzong. Guzong smiled and said, "Don't underestimate him. He really thinks so. You don't know Pan En's reputation. Just learn more about it in the next few days. As long as he speaks, the Elder Hall will definitely promote him to a true disciple." "Oh. Is the book he wrote really that powerful? Take a look at the investiture of the gods. You will definitely like it." "Okay, in that case, I will make a decision directly and give you that piece of land with a radius of 100 miles. You can plant whatever you want, and you can also get a set of 6th-level soul-protecting formations. Guzong, you will handle this matter." Tian said seriously. Guzong smiled and nodded. Guan immediately raised his hand to thank Tian. Guzong began to ask the sect master what he thought of this matter. Tian said in a sarcastic tone that he must be pretending to be ignorant. The sect master and the deputy sect master don't get along. During this period, Tian also mentioned LV Badian, that is, Old Tian, and he was very dissatisfied with Old Tian. It seems that Old Tian has changed his face and figure, so he can't recognize him. After hearing the latter, Guan just knew that Old Tian was really possessed. Old Tian usually likes to retreat and doesn't manage Taixuan sect very much, which leads to many people messing around in his name. After he became possessed, they elected Elder Chu Tianqi as the sect master. In Tian's words, "It is obvious that Old Tian is dead." This made Guan speculate more about the relationship between Guzong and Tian. Half an hour passed before Tian and the others left. Guan stood on the grass and watched them leave. Old Tian suddenly came over and asked curiously, "Is there something wrong with the outer sect?" Guan nodded and briefly told the story, which made Old Tian frown. "Old Tian, what do you think? Do you think Taixuan sect is righteous or evil?" Guan asked nonchalantly, squatting down to look at a herb in front of him. Old Tian replied, "There is a difficult area between good and evil. When discussing good and evil, we should not look at it from the present, but let future generations judge. No wonder Taixuan sect is so crooked." Guan stopped asking and was too lazy to pay attention to Old Tian. He began to plan how to plant 100 miles of land. Guzong had promised that, except for Shenzhen, he would let the nearby inner disciples move their caves farther away to avoid conflicts in the future. Inner disciples are different from outer disciples. Those who can become inner disciples are not only talented, but also have complicated connections. It is no exaggeration to say that anyone in the inner sect has a great background. After this incident, Guan understood that the Taixuan dynasty was not the world of the emperor, nor the world of the sect, but the world of the family. The Ji family could not only become the deputy sect leader of the Taixuan sect, but also place the Ji family members in every sect of the Taixuan dynasty. Not to mention the Gu family and the Zhou family, Guan felt that Chu Jingfeng and the sect leader Chu Tianqi were from the same clan, and the Chu family was not simple, but it didn't matter to him. He would not establish his own family anyway, and he didn't want to have too many concerns. Ask first, then do whatever you want. Gu Zong acted quickly. In less than 7 days, the procedures were completed, and the nearby inner disciples were transferred away. At the same time, he also brought a set of 6th-level soul-protecting formations. The soul-protecting formation is specially used to enhance and trap spiritual energy. The sky is vast, and spiritual energy is flowing. All major sects start by finding spiritual veins to establish a sect, and then block the spiritual energy, making the spiritual energy in the sect abundant, which also causes the spiritual energy of the people to become thin. With this array and vast medicinal herb resources, he can say that he has poor qualifications and relies on the accumulation of resources to achieve his cultivation level when he reaches the Jindan realm, Yuanying realm, and Huashan realm, so that others will not think he is a threat. Not only that, the ancient sect also allowed him to raise 20 menial disciples in the 3rd Medicine Valley. Generally speaking, menial disciples cannot enter the inner gate. It was an exception to bring 4 before, because he had a relationship with the ancient sect. Guan recruited 7 people from Xian Valley, including Tangyu. As for Taixuan and Wuxin, they still stayed in Xian Valley, but Guan now allowed them to visit the 3rd Medicine Valley at any time. Life is going to get better, time flies, and it has been a month since the disaster of the Outer Gate. On this day, Guan came to the Outer Gate city. There was no demon removal hall. The Outer Gate city has restored its prosperity many years ago, and the disciples coming and going are not so nervous. Walking, Guan suddenly saw someone, Jiang Qiong. When dealing with Chu Xian before, Guan's consciousness had captured Jiang Qiong, but he pretended not to know. He thought that a month had passed and Jiang Qiong had left, but he didn't expect that she was still there. Jiang Qiong walked up to him and said with a smile, "Come with me." Guan looked at the hunchbacked old man behind her and threw a lifespan probe. Humo, 9th level of the transformation realm 970/1300/1570. Guan could feel the hidden demonic energy in the old man's body. Jiang Qiong was really bold. It would be fine if he came alone, but he even brought a fellow disciple of the transformation realm. Wasn't he afraid of being exposed? Seeing Guan hesitate, Jiang Qiong raised his hand and showed a token, the great elder of the outer sect. Equivalent to the lord of the outer sect. Guan looked at her in surprise. How did she do it? Jiang Qiong smiled triumphantly, then brushed past him, and he hurriedly followed her steps. Afterwards, Guan entered Jiang Qiong's mansion. There were still many menial disciples in the mansion, and none of them had the aura of the demonic way in their bodies. Jiang Qiong led Guan into a hall, while Humo stood at the door. Guan could feel him casting a spell to isolate the room, so that no one could spy into the hall. Guan looked at Jiang Qiong sitting in the first seat, even crossing his legs, without any manners of an outer sect elder. How did you do it? Guan couldn't help asking. Jiang Qiong snorted, "Your master has great magical powers. Being the elder of an outer sect city is nothing. Maybe one day I will become the sect master." Guan was happy when he heard it, and couldn't help asking, "If you become the sect master, will you lean towards Qianqiu Pavilion or Taixuan sect?" "If I become the sect master of Taixuan sect, then I am not a demon cultivator, and I will naturally lean towards Taixuan sect. Even if you exchange the leader of Qianqiu Pavilion for me, I won't do it." Jiang Qiong answered casually, full of disdain for Qianqiu Pavilion. Guan suddenly understood why there were so many Qianqiu Pavilion spies in Taixuan sect, but Qianqiu Pavilion could not overthrow Taixuan sect. In the eyes of the Qianqiu Pavilion monks, Qianqiu Pavilion is far inferior to Taixuan sect. Wuxin would rather be a Chore's disciple in Taixuan sect than return to Qianqiu Pavilion to be the young master. From now on, any Qianqiu Pavilion monk who comes to you, you must not reveal the whereabouts of the Tsangting tree. The tree belongs only to you and me, and no longer to Qianqiu Pavilion. Do you understand? Jiang Qiong said seriously. Guan nodded. "Sorry, it only belongs to me." Jiang Qiong smiled and said, "Grand disciple, tell me what you need." Guan thought for a moment and said, can you promote Yilan from the law enforcement hall? She is my junior sister. As for other requirements, I don't need them for the time being. My medicine valley in the inner gate has expanded and there is no need for more medicine valleys. If you have seeds of high-level herbs in the future, you can give them to me. I will help you plant them and pick them for you after they are cultivated. Jiang Qiong's smile became even brighter. She looked at Guan and said, yes, I really did not accept you as a wrong grand disciple. Don't worry, the master will not be polite to you, and of course, the master will not treat you unfairly. In addition, I want to give you a task. Guan couldn't help asking, besides planting herbs, what else can I do for you? You should pay more attention to the news about Pan An on weekdays. According to the information I got, Pan An's cultivation is not high and he is hiding in the outer gate. The Elder Hall has kept a close eye on who he is. Chapter 70, The Sword Master of the Way, famous throughout the world, 4th update. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let me find me. Guan wanted to laugh, but he restrained himself. Tian asked Guan to write about himself, and Jiang Qiong asked him to find himself. Although they were in different identities, he still felt it was absurd. What is this? Guan said hesitantly, my usual activities are basically in the Medicine Valley. I am afraid it is difficult to pay attention to Pan An's news. Jiang Qiong waved his hand and said, it's hard to say. Pan An loves to write books and must communicate with people. The book of Taixuan Immortal Venerable can arouse the emotions of the lower-level cultivators. Maybe he often communicates with outer disciples and menial disciples. Anyway, you should pay more attention and tell me if you find anything. Guan could only nod when he heard it, then Jiang Qiong said something else, and asked Mo, who was guarding the door, to get a bag of high-level seeds for Guan to take away. After leaving Jiang Qiong's mansion, Guan walked towards the Tian Terrace. It is said that the Tian Terrace has become the most eye-catching attraction in this outer gate city, and disciples from other outer gate cities and inner gate cities will come to see it. The war a month ago has spread throughout the world. Of immortal cultivation. Even Luo Hun of Qinya Valley has heard about it, which means that Luo Hun occasionally leaves Qinya Valley, all the way to the Tian Terrace. Guan saw at least 10,000 people on the stage. Next to the word right way, there are many cultivators meditating. Guan first saw two familiar faces, Zhua Yijian, Zhua Lin. The father and son were observing Guan's sword intent. Guan engraved the words with sword intent, so naturally he also left sword intent. His sword intent has a great attraction for the sword cultivators of Taixuan Sect. Guan also saw one person, that is, his disciple Su Han. Su Han is also a sword cultivator. His hate heaven sword has already gained the essence, which makes his sword attainments grow rapidly, and his whole temperament is also changing. Guan watched from a distance and did not disturb him. He was listening to the discussion of other disciples. The sword intention of Fudao Jianzuan is really magnificent. It is hard to imagine how high his sword attainments are. It is said that Fudao Jianzuan has the strength comparable to that of the deputy sect master. Even if he meets the sect master, he may not lose. Maybe Fudao Jianzuan is the sect master. How is it possible? The sect master has already said that he has no idea what Chu Xian did. He will also thoroughly investigate the people related to Chu Xian. No matter how high their status is, anyone who violates the morality of Taixuan sect will be severely punished. Looking at the word righteousness, it really makes my heart surge. I heard that Pan An wants to write Fudao Jianzuan into the book. I don't know what kind of story it is. Fudao Jianzuan. This is the title given to Guan by Chu Jianqi, the sect master of Taixuan sect. To be more precise, it is given to the mysterious sword cultivator who killed Chu Xian. Fudao Jianzuan upholds the righteous way. If Taixuan sect has any more unjust things or unjust people, Jianzuan can act on behalf of the sect master, kill the unjust sect master, and kill the evil demons in the sect. It sounds impressive, but Guan thinks it is useless. Chu Tianqi announced to the whole sect that he was the one who was really saved. Since he sealed Fudao Jianzuan, the opinions of the sect against him have decreased sharply. Instead, They praised him for doing the right thing and believed that the sect master was extraordinary and dared to face the responsibility. Guan also heard someone questioning the sect master. To be precise, they questioned the Chu family. It is hard not to associate Chu Tianqi and Chu Xian together. This also shows that there are undercurrents in Taixuan sect. Those who praise and question are speaking in public, which is not in line with the style of cultivators. It is difficult to determine whether they are pawns, but all this has nothing to do with Guan. After staying at the Butiantai for a while, Guan went to the teleportation array of the inner gate. He was going to the inner gate to purchase a large number of herb seeds. Although Guzong gave him a lot of herb seeds on behalf of the sect, it was far from enough to cover 100 miles of land. Guan was very excited when he thought that his herbs were all in 100 miles. A month ago, he took a risk and not only saved the people around him, but also gained huge benefits, which made him very satisfied. In the evening, Guan returned to the third medicine valley. With the arrival of 7 menial disciples, this medicine valley has become more lively. They are weeding and reclaiming land in all directions. The barking of spirit dogs can be heard in the distant mountains and forests, which is very pastoral. Guan felt Shenzhen's breath as soon as he came back. This guy was waiting in his attic again. After going upstairs, Guan saw Shenzhen standing in front of the bookshelf reading a book. Hearing footsteps, she put the book in her hand into the bookshelf and turned to look at him. Guan closed the door and asked, "Miss Shen, what do you want to talk to me about today? I heard that you are going to write a book for Fu Dao Jianzun. It will be about him, but not entirely about him. It will mainly be about the incident in the outer sect a month ago. Then you have to be careful. Fu Dao Jianzun's reputation has spread beyond the Taixuan dynasty. I just received a letter yesterday saying that the sword cultivators of the Daiyu dynasty are preparing to challenge him. Many people think that since you want to write about Fu Dao Jianzun, you must have a connection with Fu Dao Jianzun. They think it is easier to find you than Fu Dao Jianzun." Shenzhen chuckled. When she talked about this, her eyes showed a playful look. Guan said helplessly, "How can I meet Fu Dao Jianzun? If I write about him, I have to go to the outer sect to get materials. Don't worry, I haven't revealed your identity to anyone. Even my father wanted to know about you, but I refused." Shenzhen said as he took out a book from the storage bag and put it on the table. "Although I didn't say it, you should still be careful. The strength of Fu Dao Sword Master makes many sects uneasy, and they all want to find out his information. In addition, this is the book I wrote. The book collection hall will sell it to all parts of the world in a month at most. You can take a look first." After saying that, Shenzhen walked away, passing him by. The two were already familiar with each other, so Guan did not see her off. He walked to the desk and sat down, then picked up the book written by Shenzhen, Taixuan's Secret. It sounds serious. Guan immediately flipped through the book, but as he read, his brows began to frown. Good guy. He had thought that Shenzhen's writing was not as good as Qinghong Travels, especially in matters of men and women, but he did not expect that she wrote more details than Qinghong Travels. This guy pretended in front of him, but was so unscrupulous when writing alone in private. This content should not be published, right? Guan hoped that the review strength of the library would work. Although he was very dissatisfied, he still read with relish. He read it all night. In the early morning, Guan called his disciples to start practicing. As the number of disciples in the third medicine valley increased, he felt that the tradition should not be lost, and even asked Tian Lao to join. After the practice, Guan began to assign tasks, leaving only 3 people to sow, and the others continued to open up wasteland. The third medicine valley is surrounded by dense forests. It takes a lot of time and energy to open up fields suitable for planting. Even if Guan does not use magic, he does not feel tired. He even warns his disciples that this is also a kind of practice. In fact, the disciples do not feel tired either. They are very motivated. The bigger the third medicine valley is, the more benefits they will get, because Guan is very generous to them. The more herbs there are, the more elixirs they can enjoy. The days tend to be peaceful. Guan stays in the third medicine valley most of the time, busy with reclamation and sowing. 5 days later, Shenzhen came to Guan again. She was very angry because her book was rejected by the book collection hall. Guan almost laughed. but he held back. Shenzhen is very paranoid. The more the book collection hall forbids her to publish, the more she must publish. She decided to print the book herself and then spread it quietly in the inner gate. Guan advised her to make some changes and delete some content, maybe it can be launched, but she did not listen. In any case, without the help of the book collection hall, Guan felt that her book could not be popular, and the worries in her heart were dissipated a lot. The winter snow gradually fell, and the earth was immersed in white. At noon, Guan came to Qinghong Valley. There was one more person in the valley, and his aura was not weak. Luo Hun felt Guan's aura, and jumped out of the forest directly, landing in front of him like a flying goose. You came at the right time. I will introduce you to someone who was arranged by His Majesty. In the future, he can take the harvested herbs at will to help him break through as soon as possible. Luo Hun said, and then led Guan to the attic area in the distance. Guan never coveted the herbs in Qinghong Valley. He just wanted to pick them. After picking them, he could do whatever Li Xiandao wanted. After all, these herbs originally belonged to Li Xiandao. When the two came to the attic, the door of a house in the yard next to it was pushed open, and a man in white walked out. Yi Luyan, 9th level of transformation 466/1208/2850, 9th level of transformation. The power in the hands of the emperor is not weak either. Yi Luyan looked to be in his early 40s, with a handsome figure and a white robe, which showed the handsomeness and cold and arrogant temperament of a swordsman to the fullest. Across the courtyard wall, Yi Luyan bowed and said, I am Yi Luyan, and I meet the Valley Master. Luo Hun introduced, Senior Yi is the first sword servant beside His Majesty. His sword attainments in the Taixuan dynasty can also be ranked first class in the world. People who can compete with him in swordsmanship can be counted on two hands. Guan raised his hand to salute Yi Luyan. Yi Luyan stared at Guan and asked, Valley Master, you are also a disciple of Taixuan Sect. Do you know Fudao Jianzuan? What is his specific realm? Fudao Jianzuan is famous all over the world, but everyone only knows that he killed Xian, who was in the Dushu realm. They don't know that Fudao Jianzuan has fought with the deputy sect master Ji Tian, and Ji Tian didn't mention it, as if this incident had never happened. I am only an outer disciple of Taixuan Sect, and I don't know much, but his sword intent is left on the Tian Terrace of the outer gate of Taixuan Sect. Senior, you can go and have a look. The sword cultivator inquired about the news of Fudao Jianzuan, and he might want to challenge him. Guan wanted him to go to Tian Terrace to see the word righteous path and let him recognize the gap between himself and Fudao Jianzuan. Sure enough, when he heard that Taixuan Sect had the sword intent of Fudao Jianzuan, Yi Luyan's eyes lit up, and he immediately jumped up and flew directly out of the Medicine Valley. Guan couldn't help but look at Luo Hun and asked, can he go directly to Taixuan Sect? Luo Hun nodded and said, he has the sword servant order of His Majesty, and can enter and exit the major sects at will. Guan didn't ask any more questions after hearing this. He walked to a certain park to pick the herbs that were about to mature. An hour later, he left Qinghong Valley. The new year came in the cold winter. As soon as the spring festival was over, Guan came to the outer gate again. He first asked Jiang Qiong for a batch of high-level medicinal herb seeds, and then came to the Tian Terrace to watch the fun. Zhuai Yijian and his son were still sitting and meditating on the sword, and Guan also saw the figure of Yi Luyan. This guy also meditated around the word righteousness, frowning and thinking hard. Guan's eyes looked at the person just above the word Tao, and his brows couldn't help but frown. I'm old, and I can't do it all night, but the good news is that I can continue to update in the afternoon. Let's see how much I can update today.